episode of the Laughter for All podcast. I am Comedian Nazareth, and I'm gonna start over with the hello, our TikTok friends. This is Comedian Nazareth, and welcome to the Laughter for All podcast, episode number 136. This is where we, um, invite comedians, we invite actors, artists, models, Mr. America, Mrs. America, the newsboys, you name it. We invite guests who are able to encourage you, entertain you, and lift you up. Most of our guests are comedians, but not always. Last week we had a, a construction company owner. I'm just amazing. The guy is a multi-million dollar company. Great guy from northern Los Angeles, the Valley, and just poured business wisdom into our life. So today, I have a friend who's a comedian, but before I introduce him, I will let you know. Some of you going, Nazareth, where can we see you next? Well, if you're in Grand Junction, Colorado, this weekend, Friday the 8th and Saturday the 9th of July, 2022, I'll be again hosting Night Vision Festival. I'll be performing with Greg Laurie, Jeremy Camp, Danny Goki, and so many artists. The next day, I'll be with Crowder and with David Nasser and other people. So it's a fun festival. If you're in the Grand Junction, you have to come to it. It's the cheapest festival you can get into as far as price. We don't charge a lot for it, but also you can enjoy it. On Sunday, I'm going to be in Simi Valley doing a marriage get together as for a friend in a huge home. So I don't normally do homes, but if the home is very, very huge and they can afford it, we can do it. All right. Let's see. The host is inviting to go live together. No, I can't do host. Okay. So thank you for joining us. Right now, my guest, who I had the pleasure of meeting in person, I've heard of him before and his great work, but I got to meet him first at the Christian Comedy Association last month in Indiana. What a gentleman, what a nice man, what a humble man, what a great heart. He did so much for the conference and just went on stage and gave the credit to everybody else. Something I don't do, and I'm working on it and I'm praying about it. So, don't judge me. Okay. So, Mike James, he's from Arizona, people. Mike James is a nationally recognized award winning comedian. He performs across the nation, entertaining audiences of all types, from comedy clubs to cruise ships to Fortune 500 corporate events. Mike's way of relating everyday experiences brings nonstop laughter to his audience. So, would you help me please welcome my friend, Mike James? Hello, Mike.
Hello, Nez. How you doing?
Oh, now I can hear Mike.
You can't hear me?
We need to hear Mike. Hi, Mike.
Can you hear me?
This sounds
I'm on.
bad, but your mic is not on, is it?
It says it is.
Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me, but I cannot hear you. So let's see. Let's see. It could be my bad. But no, it's audio. Yeah, it's everything is good. All right. So I don't know what's going on. Technical difficulty happens. Let's see. Javier
How about
is
now?
here on us with TikTok. We had so thank you so much, people, for joining us on both. Let's see. Mike.
It's. Hmm.
Okay, let's see. No? Oh, here one. Let's see if I can hear him. Mike. Hello?
Hello.
No, it's not
Check,
doing
check.
it. Why is
Hold on 1 second.
okay, people? This never happened before, so let's see how we gonna. It's just a challenge. We can handle it, right? Okay, let me see if I can do this because we were talking a minute ago and it was working. Okay, can you hear me, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, but I can't hear you. It's registering on my settings. Eh, Okay,
It shows that it's.
so that means okay. So Jack, Nayan, welcome, Mike, welcome, Steve, everybody. Thank you. Okay, let's see our friends from. Uh, oh, right.
Check,
Let's welcome our friends on
check,
Facebook.
check, check.
Sarah, how are you? Brian Goodwin, my insurance agent from Corona. How are you? Larkin, welcome back. Alan Goodwin, thank you for joining us. And let's see. We're trying to fix this thing. It was working. We tried. We do testing before, like earlier today, we did a test and that was working. So we don't know what's going on. So that's fine. Neil, how
Check,
are
check,
you, my
check.
friend? Okay, Sarah. Hey, Brian, come over to the Comedian Nazareth Facebook page and join the rest of us. Okay. Let's see. Sarah, Neil, Louise, leave. We can hear Mike every time as well as hearing you.
Aha.
Oh, so can you guys? They can hear him, but why can't I hear him? Let me try something. Maybe it's okay. Let's see if the audio. Okay, Mike,
Yes,
Mike,
yes, I can hear you.
I still can't hear you. So that's not my sound. So okay. So
Huh. So, but
we're gonna
the
do.
audience can hear me.
Oh. Let's see. We're gonna default it. Make it the rules, and
This is
let's
the
see.
best.
There we go.
I guess I could say things about Naz since you can't hear me.
Oh, they can hear both of us, but I can't hear you. This is weird. It could be. Why is that? Sorry. Sorry, people. This never happened. Okay. Okay. Hello. Hello, Mike.
Yep.
Mike. Okay. Let's see. Edit. No. Okay. Network connection is good. Part of the new act. Yes. Tell us stuff about Naz. Oh, gee,
I told
thanks a lot, Sarah. Now they want to hear about me. This is, can you hear any audio? Like if you play a song. Oh, let me see. It could be from my side. Okay, let me see. Okay.
I'm guessing he's got his
We're
sound
going to
muted or
go
something.
to YouTube and Mike James, and let's see if we can hear him. Okay, Mike James. Here you go, Mike James. Oh, so the problem, ladies and gentlemen, is not from him. Huh. Oh, it's the problem is from us. This is funny. First time or second time we go on TikTok, I'm missing. Okay, it's not your fault. It is on our side. Audio. Okay. Let's see. Audio is here. Default. Hello? No.
Check.
I have no clue what's going on. Sorry, people. This is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. Let's see. Okay, sound. Huh. Okay. Let me shut this
That
off and restart it, and let's see if that will work.
okay.
Maybe it's from my, but no, it should be because it's not working on my end. Huh, that's bad. That's bad. Okay, let me start over this. No, it's not. All right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna restart my computer. How about
Okay.
that?
All right. I would
While we're
rejoin you in
doing
a few
this.
minutes.
All right,
Not if
TikTok
you can hear me.
people, you still with me? You still this will work. Okay. All right. Let's see if something else is working. Here we go. Let's see you too. You, Mike James. Let's see if that will work with him. Still, the audio is not working. Let's see if that would be. Oh, here we go. Okay. I think that's what happened. All right. So we're gonna watch a little bit of Mike James. He can hear me now.
Can you hear me? No.
Yes.
Oh,
Let's.
you can.
We're listening to you right now.
Oh, I see.
But I don't think that will work. So because all right. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome again my good friend Mike James. Thank you so much for joining me, brother.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to be here.
I apologize for that, and
Okay, that's strange. It was working just right before we went on live.
we did, yeah, we did it, and it was working. I don't know what happened this
Huh.
time, but it's right before we went live. It was working, and then boom, it shut off. But that's fine. Question:
Yes.
before doing stand-up comedy, what were you doing?
I was a software engineer.
You were a
I
software engineer.
I was self-taught, but I ultimately started working at Microsoft back in the early 90s, and I worked there for a long time and started my own company. I was a software engineer for most of my career. Yeah.
Wow, you self-taught yourself, and Microsoft hired you.
Yep, that's right.
Wow, that's amazing. So let's say you were born in Arizona or where?
I know I was actually born in Tacoma, Washington, near Seattle, and that's where we lived when we first, my wife and I first got married. We moved to away because I was in the military. I was in the Navy, so we kind of moved around a little bit. We moved back to Seattle, and then ultimately decided this weather is horrible. Don't like it. Where can we go that it rains the least? And Arizona won that contest, so, so we moved here about 25 years ago.
From Washington
Yeah,
to Arizona to dry off. We have a lot of great fans in Washington State, south of Washington, Tacoma, and all that.
yeah.
So, all right. So, what do you call it? Uh, you joined the Navy at what age?
I was 20 years old when I joined. I turned 21 during boot camp. So yeah,
Why
I was
did you want to
21.
do that? Why did you want to do that?
Well, I went to college first. I was only there for about a year, and it was just a struggle. And financially, it was difficult. I wasn't keeping up financially with it like I could have been. I just wasn't real disciplined in what I was doing. So I was trying to figure out a better direction and that sort of thing. And then I frankly was always felt a strong sense of patriotism and felt like serving my country would be a good thing to do. I didn't do it originally because I just thought, well, that's kind of scary, and I don't know if I want to do that. But knowing that I needed more direction and discipline and all of that, that's what I ended up doing. And I originally actually joined the Air Force. That was my first choice. And right
Mm.
before I was, shortly before I was supposed to leave for boot camp, they told me they no longer wanted me. Apparently, I had a outstanding ticket that I wasn't aware of. But they told me because
Speeding ticket?
because I had this outstanding ticket that I didn't disclose, they couldn't take me, and it was a felonious enlistment thing. It's basically their way of just weeding out people, which for good reason. So I went across the hall to the Navy recruiter and joined the Navy.
So the Navy took you because you'll be in the water, you don't have to drive, so they were safe, right?
Exactly. They figured I'd be safe in traffic on the water.
So what did your mom think when you said I'm going to boot camp, I'm going to the Navy? How did she feel about that?
Well, not only did I sign up for a regular enlistment, I signed up for an extended enlistment. So my initial commitment was 6 years instead of 2 or 4.
Wow.
And she was not real happy about it. She wasn't upset with me, but she was just very concerned that I overcommitted and so forth. The benefit of enlisting extended like that was I've got a little bit more benefit as far as education, and the type of work I would be doing while I was in, I thought would be better. So
Oh, that's
that's why I did that. But yeah, she was not real happy. She didn't. Yeah, and then her big advice to me when I went away to boot camp was, well, when you get out on that ship and you go, I don't want you marrying some girl in some other country and bringing her home. That was her big concern. And and not that she would care what country the person was from, just that I would go somewhere and fall in love with some foreign girl and bring her home, without any input from my mother.
See, my mom never told me that, and I end up with a foreign girl coming and bringing
Yeah,
her
did
into
you?
this country. But uh, was your dad present in your life?
Yeah, my dad was there the whole time, and he and my mom were married their whole lives. My mom's still around, but he died a few years ago.
Hmm.
Excuse me.
Hmm.
And yeah, he was not as concerned. He thought, I'm sure in his mind, he thought this is good. This is be good for Mike to do this. I actually am one of 7 kids. They had 7 children, and I'm
Really?
second to the youngest. So I think my dad at that point was like, yeah, whatever. He's burnt out on all these kids. And
So you were the youngest or second from the youngest?
second to the youngest. I have a little brother.
Now, where was the humor? Where did the humor come from in your home that made you one day to become a comedian?
I've thought about that a lot, retrospectively. And my dad was always funny. He loved to joke around, but my whole family was like that. We teased each other incessantly. We really teased each other a lot, and we just laughed all the time. And so I think just growing up in that family, a lot of comedians come from very hard childhoods, and they talk about how the pain is what created this comedy. For me, it really wasn't that way. I had a great upbringing, uh, great deal of support from everybody around me all the time. I just love to laugh, and I love to make people laugh. I learned that early in school and in my family. To get attention in my family, you better make them laugh.
Oh, okay, that's what
Yeah,
it is. Yeah,
yeah.
that's fine. Now, when you joined the Navy, of course, you had the sense of humor with you, and being in that environment, like boot camp, and the seriousness of it. How did these two worlds like collided?
Well, at first, I got in a little bit of trouble. I got in a lot of trouble in school. I'll
Uh,
tell you that. I have lots of stories of little things I did in high school and so forth that got me in a lot of trouble just because I thought they were funny. So I acted out a bit. When I joined the military, I was really looking for that discipline, so I took it seriously. But even in boot camp, I I did a few things that I knew would get me in a little trouble, and they did. I um, Most of it was just little pranks on some of the other recruits, some of the other members of my company, but they ultimately it kind of fleshed itself out. By the time I was stationed to a ship, and I was on stationed to a ship for 4.5 years, and lived on a destroyer, and got to know everybody very well, then I think that's where the comedy started to really kind of reflourish, and I was able to help make everybody laugh.
Okay, now you're a comedian, and we're gonna get to the comedy, people. Trust me, but I'm just very intrigued by the whole. So you
Sure.
lived on a destroyer for
Mhm.
4.5. Did you guys destroy anything while you were there for 4.5 years? As far as like, were you in a war scene at any point?
When I joined, it was in the early or mid '80s, late '80s, and so it was still during the Cold War. That's all
Mm.
what was happening there. So most of what we were doing was going out and just posturing against the Russian ships. The way it works, real briefly, is we go out on a battle group, and the principal vessel on the battle group would be like a carrier now, or back then we had still had battleships. So we'd have battleship, and the rest of the ships are kind of support. As a destroyer, we're in the very fringe of that battle group, and we would identify air or surface targets and stop them from coming in any closer to that principal ship. Well, during the
Mm.
Cold War, we didn't have a lot of action doing that. Uh, a lot of posturing, a lot of we're locked our radar on, and they locked their radar on us. A lot of we're almost going to do this, but I think the stakes were so high. If somebody actually fired, it could have caused World War III.
Wow.
But after that, we kind of shifted, and then it became. But before I got out, it was part of Desert Shield, and there was a lot of stuff in the Middle East that we started. Uh, our weapons were used more practically at that point. Yeah.
Right. So you were you living, when you were living on that destroyer, you're 4.5 years, you're away from family, from away from everybody, right?
Well, I got married right out of after boot camp, and then my wife and I had 3 kids. I was stationed in San Diego, so that's where she lived with the 3 kids. I lived there too with her, except when I was deployed. But I was deployed for 6 months at a time, and even when I wasn't actually deployed, we would still take 2-3 weeks out. So I really wasn't home very much at all. I lived primarily on that ship.
And you're still married to your wife.
I am 36 years.
So that means praise God for you. And that means you guys, because I do a lot of military events and I
Yeah.
know a lot of divorces that happens because of that separation. But somehow you guys have a right formula. And what was it that made this work for you guys?
Well, I always had a real strong sense of family, but I honestly will have to give all the credit to my wife. It is a difficult life being a military wife. It's not a lot of money coming home to her, and she had 3 kids and was scrambling trying to raise them pretty much by herself, aside from the financial support I gave her while I was out. And but she hung in there, and just we just made it a priority. When we first got married, I grew up Catholic and I was raised Catholic, and that's kind of where my faith background was. She grew up Protestant and a lot of Baptist and Protestant churches and things that she grew up in, and so we had a common faith, but they were kind of a different perspective, a different flavor of that faith.
Yeah.
And she really taught me to learn to know who God was on a personal level. It wasn't just an academic thing anymore. And so over the years, that's really what both of us kind of aiming for that same point is what kept us together for sure.
That's just amazing because you're right. You give her all the credit for that, for making it work and your
Oh
faith
yeah.
and all that. So do you think your kids now look back and go, Dad, you weren't there or no?
You know, my son was 4.5 or 5 when I got out, and
Okay.
my other son was just 3, and my daughter was only 2. So they don't really remember much of it. My older son has vague little memories of some of his friends back then, but I don't think they remember it as me being gone so much. So they don't have that. I mean, I have a great relationship with the kids. I, on the other hand, feel like it caused a lot of stress. I don't want to say I have guilt or anything for it, but I do feel like there was a lot of things that happened because I was not there for them, and I wasn't there for my wife either for so much of that time.
Well,
Those
yeah,
are things you regret later.
you're right. I mean, every comedian. I have some guilt sometimes. I was like, you know what?
Sure.
I was there, but I wasn't there every weekend and every day and every.
Yeah.
I tried to be there for a lot of events, and they don't mind. I asked them later in life, when they grow up. I said, "Have you ever felt like I wasn't there again? Yeah, we were there. You were too." So I go, "You mean you noticed I don't have a lot of work?" So
Exactly.
tell me, when's the first time you actually went on stage in front of strangers and said, "Okay, I'm gonna do it"? When was that, and what was that like?
Well, it's kind of interesting because the first time I went on stage in front of people wasn't I didn't do it to make them laugh. I did corporate speaking and things, and I
Mm,
just kind of always had situations that came up over the years where I would have to be in front of people presenting something, and I usually try to introduce humor into it also. So I try to make them laugh here and there, but it had another purpose. The first time I stood on stage as a stand-up comedian, um, I I wanted to try stand-up, and I thought just the way I am, I did it very analytically, and I thought, okay, I'm going to bring some other people together that have done stand up or that want to do it. And we had this thing, we called it the round table, and we
mm.
got together every week and just kind of wrote jokes and helped each other along. And then after a few months, we decided, okay, we're going to put on a little show and invite our friends and family, and we did. It was a little local community theater. We just invited everybody in. to watch. And that was the first time I did it. And I was overwhelmed with the response. I just thought, wow, they just think this is so hilarious. They were now in retrospect, they were all friends and family, and they were just being supportive because that was horrible material. I can look back now and think, I can't believe I even said those things. They're just so ridiculously dumb.
But that helped you. You went
Oh yeah,
again on stage.
absolutely. And that actually led to my first booking right immediately after that, where I opened for another comedian. Not at a big club; it was at a kind of a private event, and then I started doing some open mics and things. But once I did it the first time, I just thought, wow, I really like this. I really never expected I would do it long term. It was a bucket list thing. I thought I'm going to try it out, and that'll be that. But I kept doing it, and then I realized I am spending a lot of time and resources on this, and if I don't start making money or kind of justifying the amount of time and effort I'm putting into it, I really need to stop doing it. And my kids were all moved out by this point.
Oh,
They were
so
all
what year
adults.
was that? What year was
This
that
was in
when you went on?
2007, I think.
Oh, I see.
So it
Okay.
wasn't that long ago. But my kids were out or kind of coming in and out at that point. They were grown, and so I had more time to myself. But I just felt like I was, doing that. So because I had spoken in the corporate world, I thought, well, maybe I'll try to leverage that and do humor, be more of a humorist and speak corporately, but add comedy in. And I tried different things. By the way, before I started doing stand up, I started doing improv comedy, which I
Oh,
never expected
before
to do.
stand-up.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did that first for a few years before that, and that's when I met Brian Kohatsu, a friend of ours. And yeah, so he and I got to be very close friends, and we just did a lot of improv. So even now, we go out to a lot of events, and we do a mix of stand up and improvisational comedy and some sketch stuff. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
If you have to do improv or stand-up only, what would you prefer?
Definitely stand up.
Okay.
Now
Why is that? I mean,
there,
people don't understand. Some people don't understand the
yeah,
difference between. Can you explain that a little bit about the difference
sure.
between improv and stand-up?
So for even now, if I go without one of them, I start craving doing that one thing. So if I just do stand up for a long time, I start craving. I really want to get some improv and do some of those shows. And if I do a lot of improv and haven't done stand up, I go the other way. But excuse me. But overwhelmingly, I would much rather do stand up. The difference is with improv, it's you go up generally with a scene partner or somebody else on stage with you, and you kind of just play off of each other, just make it up as you go, and you get ideas from the audience and maybe interact with them a little bit, and it's a lot of fun, but it ends up being kind of a little more silly, which is fine.
Mm.
And a lot of people like it, and it works well with younger people. If I'm going to be performing with in front of younger people, like under 15, 14, 15 years old,
Oh, you
improv,
do those shows.
yeah, improv works way better with them because it's silly. It's kind of goofy and fun. Stand up is much more disciplined, and it's not that everything that happens on stage with stand up is pre-planned and scripted, but kind of where you're going and at least what you're there for, and you're on your own.
Mm.
So and that I've always enjoyed stand up, and I think honestly, for most audiences, they watching good stand up is more entertaining than watching good improv, even especially if they're older, because you can relate to them. The subject matter is more relatable,
Mm.
all of that.
Now, with the so you started doing improv a little bit, then you went into stand-up comedy, and it started paying off. You started getting hired at corporations.
Yeah, I did some corporate stuff, and I got really lucky early on. I had a contact at Comedy Central and went there and talked with them. They wouldn't put me on screen because I was, even at that point, I was in my 40s, but even then I was too old for them to use.
Really?
Yeah, they have a very tight demographic of who they want to put up, and I wasn't one of them. But through that connection, I was able to do some writing and stuff, and I was a contributing writer to a lot of stuff for Comedy Central, and that evolved over to getting some of the writing and stuff I had on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and then
Uh-huh.
even with Jimmy Fallon later.
Wow, you wrote for Jimmy Fallon for the
Yeah.
Tonight Show with Jimmy
Yeah.
Fallon. That's all. How often were you writing for them, and what?
Well, it's kind of a contentious thing because to some people, if I say that, they go, "Well, you weren't on the writing staff," and that's true. I wasn't
No.
as a
Yeah.
contributing writer, which I don't think they do anymore because they have their writers guild and things are a little more strict. But what I would do is I'd write a page a day, just one full page, about 15 to 30 jokes, really, depending on what I could think of, based on the current news, and I'd just send those straight in,
Okay.
and yeah.
Go ahead. I want to stop you on that point. Okay, so you write every day about 30 jokes
Mhm.
and you send it in. I mean, I used to do that for Leno in the beginning, but after a week I stopped because I said, "Wow, those are good jokes. I want to do them myself.
Right.
I don't want their $50." But you wrote every day. Now, have you ever had a block and what because there's comedians who watch this and people there's writers and creative people. What helped you write every day?
Well, it's funny. Going back to when I was in the military, if I wrote a letter to my wife every day, it was so easy. I could write and write and write, and but if I said I'm going to write a letter and then wait a couple weeks, all of a sudden it became very difficult. Not because writing was more difficult, but I felt like I needed to write what was the most important over the last 2 weeks, as opposed to here's how my day's going, and I lost a pair of underwear in the ship's laundry, and you know those little things, which after a couple of weeks of not writing, you don't want to write those things. They're inconsequential, but
No,
that's
who's paying for those underwear? The
uh,
taxpayer or you?
no, that's me.
Oh, okay, good.
I have
'Cause I
horrible
don't want the
laundry
taxpayer.
stories. But yeah, the so to answer your question, writing every day actually became fairly easy. What really kind of put an end to it was it took a lot of time, and as you said, you don't really make any money at it. But also I found my writing was just get anything out there, anything, and it wasn't clever. I like to think things through, and I like to develop material to be something that's interesting and a little more clever. And this wasn't. These were things like just whatever was in the top of the news, and some obvious little uh, um, punchline to it.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't really very fulfilling. And I had done it, and I felt like, oh, I achieved that goal, so I'm going to move on. It's not like as a contributing writer, somebody sending stuff in, whether you got one on the air or 100 on the air, it kind of feels the same. So it didn't really matter
Yeah.
after that.
Well, let me read what some people. First of all,
Sure.
Sarah, who's from your hometown, from
Oh,
Washington State, she said, "Thank you for your service, and also that's good that you're started. Your family was laughing, so that got you started." But Alan Goodwin say, "Hey, I'm not a public speaker, so I commend all comedians who take that step of courage to get up on stage and make others laugh and lift out whatever challenges they're dealing with." Well, thank you, Mr. Allen.
yeah.
Okay, let's see. Anybody else was asking question? Nope. Okay, good. So, let me ask you this. Okay, so when did you start doing cruises?
I can't remember the first year. It was quite a while ago. 7 or 8 years ago, I think. I really don't remember. I think probably around 2015, somewhere in there, give or take a year. And yeah, I happened one of the guys that booked me for a lot of events around the Southwest started booking cruises, and he in fact he bought a booking company, and so through that connection I got on one of the cruises. And then while I was actually on the commitment for the first, they committed me to 5 weeks, so I was back in the military again.
I know you're back on the ship, which like it
Yeah,
probably brought up memories.
it did a lot. And I was gone for a long time, but of course my kids were all grown at this point. And but I was on this ship for 5 weeks, and while I was on that ship I got booked for a bunch of other commitments on the cruises. And so that's how that happened, and it was great. I loved it. My wife can come for free and cruise with me, and she didn't go on the first one, and she won't go on them if they're like to Alaska or um the Northeast or something. She only goes if it's in the Caribbean or Mexico or somewhere where it's nice and warm and tropical.
Yeah, that's like my
So
wife. Yeah.
yeah, but then even that became okay. I got to scale back. That was just I was gone all the time. for years. I
Yeah.
was just constantly on cruises.
Okay, now we got a lot of questions coming. First of all,
Sure.
Sarah Vo said, any horrible laundry stories we could hear?
Well, so remember this is in the 80s, and I don't know if anything's changed or not. I'm sure it has, but a lot of times our laundry system would go down. First of all, they wash the clothes in salt water,
Oh,
and a lot of times the laundry system would go down. So to clean our clothes, we'd put them in a big netted bag and hang it over the end of the ship with some soap and just let it drag in the ocean, and then pull it in and do what we could with it. So a lot of the clothing was real stiff and hard. The other thing too is, even when that wasn't the case and the laundry was working and they were dealing with it, for some reason, every once in a while your bag would come open or whatever, so your laundry would get mixed with some others, and I'd lose some of my stuff. My wife was sick of me writing home saying, I need, please send more, undershirts or whatever. So what she did was she made sure everybody knew which was mine. So she
oh,
decorated them with all kinds of flowery, crazy decorations. One, I'll never forget, I got my t-shirt. I had a t-shirt and it had a big butterfly painted on the front of it. And the butterfly was actually a print of my son's rear. She had dipped in paint and put on the shirt, which made a big butterfly kind of symbol of wings. And then she decorated them like butterfly wings. So, but everybody knew where where my clothes were.
oh, that's Mike James. Leave him alone. Don't wear his
Yeah,
clothes.
don't
Okay.
wear his stuff.
You know Michelle Van Dusen, comedian
Oh
from
yeah,
Toronto.
I love
Yeah.
Michelle.
She said, "Did you ever find your skivvies, or are they still on the ship?"
I did. There's many pair I never did find. However, I doubt they're still on the ship. Actually, that ship is no longer in service.
Oh, so you can go and look for them, right? Let's see. Mike just can't get away from the military. Well, it's me asking. Michelle said, "Do you get to eat with the passengers, or do you have to eat with the staff on cruise?" That's a great question because
It is.
I heard some cruises. Go ahead.
So all cruises are a little different, but generally speaking, for the most part, I mean, there's very rare exceptions to this. If you're a guest entertainer, you're brought on like I was. They have a lot of entertainers on the ship, and they're crew entertainers, like the dancers and the big shows they put on. Most of those are crew entertainers. They work on the ship. They have other jobs besides entertaining. But as a guest entertainer, when you brought in as like a headline guest entertainer, you're treated very, very well. You generally stay in a passenger cabin with a
Mhm.
window, not an internal cabin, a nice external cabin. Now, granted, the window's usually right where the lifeboat is, so you can't really see anything, but they
But
do
it's
that.
at the
And
window.
but no, I eat up in the buffet and all of that with everybody else. I'm very shy. So when I learned this early on the cruises, I would do a show, and after shows, I'm used to meeting and greeting people and talking to them and all of that. But I'd have a show like cruises, for a week. If I have a show in the middle of the week, I realize after that, everybody on that ship knows me. They all watched me perform and whatever, and so this is a bad thing. It's not good, but I am too introverted to want to engage with all these people. It becomes pretty overwhelming, to be honest. So I would kind of retreat back to my stateroom for the second half. If I had to show early in the cruise, it was tough because I'd stay in my stateroom most of the cruise. If it was, but even in the middle, I would kind of retreat back. I just didn't want to be out, and so I'd go eat when I knew other people weren't eating and all
Oh.
that. I know that sounds horrible, and I really don't mind meeting people. It's just hard when there's so many at once. I'm just not good at interacting with people that way.
You know what, Mike? I'll tell you this, and it's true. Um, I'm an extrovert, and I know you're an introvert, but I think I say I'm an extrovert, but initially I think most comedians are introvert. Like
Mhm.
if I'm at a party or an event and there's so many people, and I get a social overload, so I would go either sit in my car, like sometimes in my own house. I have
Yeah,
people over, like there's like 30, 40 people in my house, and I'm having fun and serving them and stuff. But then I would go to my room, and Maha, in the beginning, I'm like, where's Naz? Where's Naz? What is he
yeah,
doing? And then she started understanding. Like I get social overload. I can't. It's too much. I'm just trying to be nice to everybody, repeating the same thing. But I heard that some of the cruise ship, like Carnival, they don't treat you as well. you go sit or sleep next with the crew or with all that, but there's ones that treat you very well.
I didn't do Carnival, and I've heard the same thing where your quarters is down below deck where the crew is, and that's not been that awful. I mean, it's um, but they definitely treat you differently. Some of the cruise ships are much more lavish than others, and they treat the guest entertainers differently. But in my experience, most of them, Norwegian Cruise Lines and Princess and most all of them are just really great. And then there's smaller lines too, like Oceana, which is real high end. They're really luxury, smaller ships, but have very wealthy people on them, and they treat you really well too. It's really hard to do comedy on those ships, though.
Why?
I don't know what it is. I think part of it is I don't know. There's just something about those crowds that seem to be much more reserved and not as willing to laugh out loud and that.
That's true.
So
That's true. Yeah. Let me. Also, I want to tell TikTok people, who are watching. I don't know how many hundreds. You can ask questions to comedian Mike James if you have any question. Here's a question from Neil. He said, "Is there one joke that you were most proud of and thought would kill it, but just bombed?"
yes, yes, I've got a few of them like that, and what I'm trying to think of the one. I still to this day every once in a while throw it in there, thinking, okay, it's gonna work, it's got to work, it's funny, and it never really gets a good laugh. And I'm trying to think of what it is. Shoot, I can't think of what it is off the top of my
I
head.
know what you're
I will
saying.
come back to that because it'll come to me momentarily. But yeah,
Michelle
there's definitely things like that.
Michelle Van Dusen is still in your your laundry thing. How many mackerels did you catch when you did your laundry? Okay, that's a joke. All right. He's a decorated soldier replying, okay, I can hear it now after the show. Don't look Mike directly in the eyes. Okay, I won't. Did you and your wife ever do the Titanic pose for fun when you were
No,
on the ship? No.
no, we haven't done that.
Okay, is that the one where you drop the jewel in the ocean? Right. Maybe the richer crews have people who are worried about saving face and impressing others. No, I think with rich people, I think. I mean, I've done a lot of events for very, very wealthy people,
Yeah.
and they don't laugh. Number one, it's hard to get their attention to listen to you because they
Mhm.
think yeah, you're just another comedian. But once you get them laughing, you get the right people laughing, then everybody will laugh. And you're right. Maybe they're worried of like thinking, oh, if I laugh, I would look less, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I will say the crowds are a little smaller on those ships, and the shows go fine. They go well. I feel like it just takes a little longer to kind of get them ramped up to the point where they're having a great time.
Yeah. Brian Goodwin said everyone has a bomb. Wait, watch out, Brian. This is a Middle Eastern host, so you don't say that. Well, I think what he means everybody bombs once in a while. Do you
Oh
have
yeah.
some good saver lines for them?
For if I bomb,
Yeah.
I usually will say I'll immediately go to the audience and I'll personalize it to somebody and I'll go, well, you didn't like that, and then try to get some information and kind of interact with them a little bit. I never know where it's going to go. If overall I just feel like the audience isn't really on board, so everything's kind of bombing, then yeah, that's my go-to is I try to go to the audience because I feel like I could stand up here and spew material out for an hour and a half, but if you're not buying it, it's kind of ridiculous. So let's try to see if we can have some fun. Usually that takes care of it, at least to a degree. But
Right.
yeah, no, everybody bombs sometimes. I've had horrible bombing experiences.
I think the more we do it, the longer you do it, the less you will bomb because
Oh, for sure.
there's techniques that we can use as comedians. And maybe movement, increase the movement, louder voice, maybe style, just doing something. This is funny. Last Friday, I did a singles event, and it was singles, I think, over 50 or something. But, it was supposed to be. I mean, I've had since COVID, I mean, I've had a killer set. I mean, not set like a run. It was like applause, standing ovation. So I
Mhm.
went in with that attitude, and I was trying new material because I'm like, it's local.
Yep.
It's my friend's gig. I'm gonna. What the singles wanted me to do is interact with them, and sometimes it's hard when you do singles some of them are over 50. When you try to interact with them, they just like, they don't want to say a lot of information about themselves.
Right.
And so it's just a weird dynamic. So I felt that the room, okay, this is, they're not laughing. So I increased the energy. I started doing other stuff where I know it's gonna work. And I made them laugh, but when I finished, I was like, that was not good. But I know you do have some ways to get, so Brian, to answer, yeah, he does have some savers, and it's not maybe a joke or two, but a reaction attitude
I
or a
don't. Yeah, I don't have any like canned. Oh, this little zinger if it bombs. Although I've seen comedians with a lot of those, and I think in my head, I think, how often do you bomb that you have so much material to cover yourself? Because I seriously, I always think that's so strange. But but my trick is, yeah, I think it's just a kind of a safety net for me if I just go kind of into the audience and start to engage them a little bit.
yeah.
Because honestly, most of the time anymore, if and you're right, after doing it a long time, you don't really bomb so much anymore. But if I feel like the audience isn't really responding, it's because the audience is just not engaged. They're not paying attention. There's something else going on.
Yeah.
At a comedy club, it's not. I don't know that I would bomb. I haven't bombed or had a bad set in a comedy club for a long time, and I still do comedy clubs here and there. But at like a corporate event, you never know. There's always distractions. There's always things going on, and it's not always the perfect environment for comedy. And so if that's happening, then usually just going into the crowd, getting them to engage a little bit is all it takes.
A question. What's your favorite venue? I know you do corporates, you do cruises, you do clubs, and you do churches. What would be your favorite venue?
Um, let's see. Well, the most fun to do is just like a comedy club. It's made for comedy. It's going to go great every time. You can really get people rolling. But my favorite to do, in the sense that the most fulfilling, is churches. When we go out and do these churches, I feel like I'm doing what I'm being called to do. I feel like I'm just doing what I was meant to do in those situations. It's not it certainly doesn't isn't about me. It's about what I'm doing. Hopefully,
All
the
right.
people that we're reaching. In other words.
That's awesome. What is one of your most memorable shows, Mike? There is one.
Oh, I can tell you one. It was a comedy club. It was in Fargo, North Dakota, and I was there for the whole weekend. I was booked to headline the whole weekend, and it was two shows Friday and two shows Saturday. The first show set Friday had very few people. It was like, I don't know, 30 people or so out of like, I don't know, 80 that fit in this room. So it was a small crowd, but it was okay. The second Friday show, nobody came, so they canceled it.
It's
Then the
North
Saturday
Dakota.
show, the first Saturday show was they already had canceled the second Saturday show for lack of tickets already. So the second Saturday show only had 6 people in it. And the reason it was the most memorable is because I had it was 3 couples, and they all came right up next to the stage. And it was just me and these 3 couples getting to know each other for an hour and a half. And it was the most fun I'd ever had on stage. We
Oh,
laughed so hard. I don't think I really went through hardly any material. It was just us engaged. And it's one of those rare things where just this fluid, fun, great. And to this day, almost, I think at least 4 of them still follow what I do, and they come out to shows if I'm in the area.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Is
it was really
any
cool.
is any of your kids maybe dabbled with comedy?
So when I first started doing improv, the reason I did it is because my middle son and my youngest, my daughter, took an improv class in school. It was part of
Mm.
their theater program, and they were telling me about it, and so I was trying to help them find out. Oh, well, if they seem to be enjoying it, so I was looking around, see if there was things they could do for improv outside of school to explore that further. And there really wasn't. I found a local theater that kind of did a little bit. Their improv instructor left, so I started instructing improv. I'd never done improv, but I kind of watched, and I just kind of organized. I shouldn't say I instructed it, but I organized it, and that's how I started in on improv. But my
Oh,
middle son, to answer your question, is, yeah, he's quite the comedian. I don't know that he'd ever go on stage. He never has. He hasn't really shown any interest in doing that, but he's one of the funniest people I know. He's
wow.
hilarious.
Does your wife think you're funny?
um, The honest answer is I think she thinks I'm okay. She even my friends, any other comedian friends I have, they will tell you, if you want to really become humble, tell a joke in front of Jenny, Mike's wife, because she will look at you and go, hmm. And that's a pretty positive response. So
Mm, mm,
yeah, okay.
Y- Yeah, my kids are the ones that like will humble you. I mean, I would try a bit on them, like, and then sometimes I don't listen and I do it on stage and I get an applause stop. And I'm going, when I get home, those jerks gonna be living homeless people. Them kicking them out of the house. Because so many jokes I tried on them. No, Dad, you can't do that. I'm like, okay. And then I do it and it works. Does your wife think you're funny? Oh, I just added. That's a
Yeah.
funny question right there. I'm sorry. I asked it right at the same time
Oh, that's
Sarah
right.
was asking. But what do you call it? When did Jesus really grab a hold of your life?
Well, I would say really to the degree where I decided I'm on fire committed, it was in I'm trying to remember the year now. It's 1993, I think. I was out of the military. I got out in 1991. And but I was going to church. I was part of the church, and very active in the church. And I went to a Promise Keepers event,
Mm,
and and during that event, I won't say it wasn't because of the event, or it was, but just during the event, among the guys that I was with, I really became convicted, and that's when I really just poured my life in and said, Christ, I want you to be my leader. I don't want to take control anymore. I don't. I need a stronger rudder than I can provide, and I that's when I really handed it over to him in earnest. There were times in the past where I kind of went through that motion, and
mm.
but I didn't. It was at that point. It was in the early '90s that it became super important to me.
What role does your faith play in your comedy? Neil is asking you.
That's a great question, and um, this is actually what I was speaking about at CCA, is our faith being important in all aspects of our life. And I think it's for most people. I think certainly for me, it's something I struggle with, to make my faith be more of a primary catalyst for the things I do and the decisions I make. So to answer your question, I think it plays a pretty good degree in the sense that I want to make sure that I'm blessing people. I don't want to be somebody uh, that's hurting, or making fun of things that would be cause harm or pain to others. So in that sense, it's there. I really want to be able to bring more of my faith in. I will do certain events at churches and things where I bring, talk about my faith a little bit more, but there's really no reason not to discuss it. Even in corporate events, it's not appropriate to preach to them, but it certainly is appropriate to be very clear that you're a Christian, and that and that's the life you live.
Mm.
And
Have you
that's something I could do more of.
Have you ever had any challenges with people, like, when you in a corporate event, you know how they're very, very careful and we have to
Right.
watch what we say. Have you ever had where people say, "Oh, you can't say you're a Christian," or has this happened?
No,
Okay.
not that way. I've had people from church tell me you shouldn't be doing comedy in a church. I've had those discussions, but no, I'm not where you can't be Christian. But I'm not really very outspoken in it either. And the fact that I haven't been challenged is probably not a good sign. I should probably be doing things where I get to the point where there's some challenge. If the enemy doesn't care what you're doing, then you're probably not doing it right.
Well, you know what? I mean, I'm very outspoken on stage. I
Mhm.
even in like when I do theaters and performing arts center, I share the Lord. I just tell them about Jesus
Right.
and all that. So I share. But what I'm saying is, like, sometimes people, some comics, Christian comics, will just do an excellent job, and then that kind of brings people. Somehow, people will notice. Hey, and I'm sure someone walked up to you at a club or at a cigarette bar and said, I bet you're a Christian.
Yeah. It's funny because I get that a lot simply because I was the only clean act. And so, they say, "Oh, you must be a Christian." Um, but yeah, no, you're right. I do that, and it's certainly nothing I hide. It's just it could be more present in presenting myself to people than it has been, and and so that's definitely something I want to keep working on and make it more part of it. Because honestly, as Christians, there's a lot of comedy there. There's a lot of funny, silly things that we do and the way we look at life and all of that.
Right. First, I want to say to Sukuyisu, thank you so much. You love my drive arc. Thank you so much for joining us. First time here. Thank you. Michelle said, how do you use your faith on stage? Do you tell Christian jokes?
I do. I used to do this real joke I loved about how new Bibles are like new tennis shoes. But they're the opposite. You don't want people to notice you have a new Bible, but you want people to notice your new shoes. That was the get you. You don't want you if people see you have a Bible and it's not scuffed up and folded, and they think, oh, you're not taking your faith seriously. And then I used to do a joke about how people pray in a group, but they use prayer as a way to communicate to each other more than to God.
Oh, that's funny.
You know, so anyway, I do that in a lot of settings. You do have to be a little bit careful because you can't. No, those things would be fine in a corporate event, but you got to be careful as far as trying to bring any level of conviction to people in those
Hmm.
events because it's not what they wanted. It's not what they had. It's a little dishonest to kind of bait and switch that way.
Right.
But like I said, I certainly would like to make it more an element of the speaking I do. Sure.
Neil, again, do you have, that's a good question. Do you have a Christian set and a regular set or?
Don't. When I was on the cruise ships, they would often say, "Okay, now we're going to do the adult set, so the dirty show at at a later time at night." And I'd say, "Okay," and then I do it, and I do just the same clean material that I would have done anyway, and people just love it, and they think, "Oh, that was great," and they may take innuendo a little differently because they think it's dirty, but it's not, and it always made me laugh to think that it mattered, and it doesn't. It really doesn't. So no, I don't have a different set. I do, depending on the church and the agreement we've had. Sometimes the church will want me to speak on a certain topic in the middle of it, and I'll do that, or preach on Sunday morning after a Saturday night show or something. But not, I don't have it like, oh, this is my different set because I'm at a church versus I'm not at a church.
That's good. Here's a question from Alan. How do you both describe clean comedy to others
That's a
without
good question.
making it sound antiseptic or less joyful than what they're used to?
That's a great question, and that's
Yeah.
actually an issue with marketing clean shows and things. Because if you say clean, people assume, well, it's for kids or it's not as good, and that's not true at all. So that's a great question. So how do you let me ask you, Naz, how do you describe clean comedy?
How do I describe clean
Yeah, how,
comedy?
how would you explain to
It,
people what that is?
well, I say comedy that doesn't take your mind in the gutter or in the toilet. So it's just like any other comedy, but it doesn't make you feel dirty or compromise your faith at the end of the show or your values, regardless of your
Yeah,
faith. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what. And
I
it's
think that's
hard. It's hard because people say clean comedy, and I went to a place where the guy said, "I'm a clean comic." He was talking about he was sleeping around with his girlfriend and smoking pot, but he said it's clean. I didn't do any f word, any language, anything. So,
yeah.
okay, that's clean comedy. Then that's your
It's
clean
it's
comedy.
funny how the mindset of different people are. To me, it's exactly that. I always people say, "Why do you do clean comedy?" And I always think, I don't want to be a character on stage. Not that there's a problem with that. Larry the Cable Guy, all these guys that do characters on stage, that's fine. But if I were to do dirty, I would have to be a character because that's not who I am. I don't talk
Mm,
to people in terms like that. So being on stage, if I were to do that, I would have to pretend to be somebody else. First of all, and then
that's
also I feel convicted to not be somebody that brings people down and stuff. To be honest, I feel like there's a lot of what is considered clean or not clean in the Christian community that is could be debated. Is that clean or is it not? Are you allowed to talk about alcohol or not? Depending on the environment you're in, it can be totally different.
Right.
And so I think everybody could kind of relax a little bit about it. But as long as I feel like I'm not betraying my own convictions and my faith, then I'm okay with it. And
Okay.
just using crass words and things, I don't like listening to that. So I don't. That's
You
not
didn't
kind of
do it.
do what I do.
Right. Now, what are you working on right now, Mike? Products, books, anything?
I am not working on any of those. I actually have some software that I've been working on for years that I took back off the market when COVID hit. It's called Gig Tools, and it's just a system to manage all your events and for an entertainer. And
Oh,
it's very powerful and it does a lot of stuff. But I got to a point where it's like, okay, I need to redo some things and all that. And after COVID hit, and I lost a lot of people that subscribed to that service, I took it off and tried to rework it. So I'm still kind of rebuilding that. So that's one thing I'm working on. The rest is I did a dry bar recording over a year
good.
ago. So I'm trying to figure out how to leverage when that gets released, how to leverage that the best I can. There's a lot of different advice for that.
Right. That's awesome, man. This question, what Bible story do you think is funniest?
So there's a story, and I don't. It's just me, and I've mentioned this to even my pastor, and he just kind of looks at me like, I don't see how that's funny, but it's the story when Jesus, after he rises again, he comes back. They go into the room, and and they ask, what can we do for you, Lord? And he said, you got any food? And to me, that cracks me up because I think he hasn't eaten for 3 days. He's probably starving.
That's
I don't know
funny.
why
Yeah.
that always makes me laugh.
That's funny. Yeah. So in this clothing, you're a man who has a faithful marriage. Great. You're a good father. You served your nation. Thank you for that. And you're a funny man and you're doing comedy and you're blessing people. How can you close this event? Before you say that, I'm gonna ask you a question, but right before that, I want you to tell us how can people get a hold of you and to book
Oh,
you and to get a hold of you. But how what do you tell people? How do you encourage people? Maybe something that you encourage yourself with to keep going in this time and day.
so
First of all, your how can people
Oh, the
get a hold of
communication. Oh,
you?
sorry. Yeah. So Mike James Comedy. That's my Facebook handle, my Twitter handle, my website is mikejamescomedy.com. So anything Mike James Comedy, you'll be able to find me. um, as far as the other question, what I do. So 7 or 8 years ago, I went to the first CCA conference that I went to, and that really encouraged me just so much. I didn't have other people around me like that were comedians, that were of faith, and I made a lot of great friends that I still have today. And so being a part of a group like that really helped. And I keep in contact, all the time with these people that I met through that and other Christians. So to me, it's just a matter of that fellowship, having good fellowship with good, strong believers around you, and that's what encourages me.
Good, good, good. Yeah. Well, Mike, thank you so, so, so much for your time with us and you taking the time. Uh, and I know it's Arizona and it's July, so being indoors is awesome. I appreciate. What's next for you? Where's your next gig?
Let's see. I actually have a little bit of time off on purpose, and then I am going to New Mexico in a couple of weeks. I'll be at can't remember what the venue is now. Shoot, somewhere in Albuquerque. But
Okay, well,
it'll be on my website ultimately when I
Right.
repost
So
all this.
if you're New Mexico people, go to mikejamescomedy.com. Also, if you're a pastor, if you're a nonprofit executive director or a corporate, you're a CEO or HR or have some power, decision power at your corporation or your church, please consider Mike James. Very funny man, very clean, very professional. I mean, you will have a great time. So
I
I
appreciate that.
encourage you to listen to him. Mike, thank you so much, and God bless you, brother, for your time.
Thank you, Naz. Thank you
Okay,
for having me on.
stick around for a second. Just let's go. All right, guys. Thank you for watching, and if you're on TikTok, thank you for. We're here every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time with our podcast. but also we're here every weeknight, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, sometimes when I'm in town. Well, this Friday, I will be in Grand Junction, Friday and Saturday, with at Night Vision Festival with Greg Laurie and Crowder and Jeremy Camp and Danny Goki and all in Mac Powell from Third Day, and all these guys will be doing, you know, music and comedy for 2 days over there. So join us in Grand Junction. Also on Sunday, I'm going to be in Simi Valley doing a couples gathering. And so anyway, go to my website, nazarethusa.com, and find out what you can do. Also, if you wanna help us with our Laughter for All outreach, the big one at the Anaheim Pearson Amphitheater on September 17th. If you want to volunteer, you want to help, please go to laughterforall.org, and just add your name as a volunteer. You can volunteer, you can donate, you can pray, whatever you want to do, you can help us with that event. So want to thank you. So join us weeknights at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time on Live with Naz, where you become the comedian for an hour. Also, at the same time, you can join us every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. right here under Comedian Nazareth, and we can laugh together. Love you guys. Thank you so, so, so much, and we'll see you next time. God bless you.